Frozen Drift, a short horror story set in coastal Iceland. The storm came early that year. By mid-January, Storahoven was already buried under a thick white silence, the kind of snow that swallowed roads, muffled screams, and made it feel like the world had folded in on itself. Johan stood at his kitchen window, cradling a cup of lukewarm coffee, watching the snow drift sideways across the harbor. The town's few remaining boats were tied tight and half-buried. A storm like this, no one was getting in or out for days. In the next room, Einar sat cross-legged on the floor, building a polar bear trap out of Lego bricks. Bryndís, 12 and sharper than he or her brother ever would be, sat by the fire reading a book on Icelandic monsters. "A creature with too many eyes," she read aloud. "It floats to shore when the oceans had enough of hiding it." Johan tried to laugh. "Sounds like something Amma used to tell me when she wanted me inside by dark." But Bryndís didn't smile. It was just after midnight when the radio crackled to life. Johan had dozed off in his chair, a blanket over his knees. Einar snored softly on the couch. Bryndís was still up, flashlight under the covers. The voice on the radio was wet, like it had drowned before speaking. "Watch tower breached?" Then static. A few seconds of silence. Then the screaming. Not human, not polar bear, something else. Johan dropped the coffee mug. It shattered against the stove. He grabbed the radio handset. "Rosa? Katla? Come in." More static. Then, "It's not a bear. It's not a bear. It's not." Click. The Bear Watch cabin sat less than a kilometer down the coast, built into the rocks where the icebergs sometimes grounded. Armed rangers rotated shifts during polar bear season. They had flares, rifles, floodlights, trained for emergencies. But when Johan arrived at sunrise, half walking, half crawling through knee-deep snow, the door was hanging open. Inside, the walls were smeared with something that steamed in the cold. The smell hit him like a slap. Copper and salt, undercut with something sickly sweet, like rotting kelp. No bodies, just streaks, and a dragging trail that led out the back, toward the shoreline. He didn't follow it. Not yet. He saw something else. An ice floe. Beached on the rocks. Massive. Wrongly shaped. Like it had grown around something, or something had grown through it. By midday, the sun hadn't come. The storm blanketed the sky in permanent dusk. The town generator cut out. Then the cell tower. Johan ran back, faster than he'd left. Bryndís met him at the door. "Dad," she said, pale. Einar saw something. Johan stepped inside. "Where?" She pointed to the window. "Out there, in the snow." It was tall. Tall like a man? No. Like it used to be a man. That night, the town's mayor disappeared. So did a police officer and one of the storekeepers. They found the dog sled team torn open in their pen. Not eaten, just torn. That's when Johann saw the shape in the fog, towering, slouched, covered in something that hung from it like seaweed, but moving, watching, then gone. They tried to gather the townsfolk, board the church, heat what little space they could. It didn't help. The creature didn't smash through walls or break windows. It waited, copied, called out in familiar voices, knocked like a neighbor. They watched someone open the door to their dead brother, hug him, then scream as their chest was opened like paper. On the third night, Einar began to whisper to someone who wasn't there. He says he's cold. He says he used to be warm. Johann held him close, terrified. But Indy's, flashlight in hand, flipped through her monster book like a priest desperate for a forgotten prayer. "It's not just a thing," she whispered. "It's old. It comes when the ocean can't hold it anymore. It doesn't want to feed. It wants to belong." At dawn, if you could call it that, Johann made a choice. They couldn't wait to be picked off. They would go to the lighthouse. It had a backup radio, a flare launcher, and a tunnel beneath the snow that ran all the way from the school. They packed quietly, but in these carried Einar's blanket like armor. Johann took the old bolt-action rifle, just in case. The tunnel was dark. The flashlight flickered. Johann heard footsteps behind them, slow and wet. He didn't look, but Indy's did. She didn't scream, just said very softly, "It's wearing Rosa's face." They made it. The radio still worked. Johann sent out a blind call on the emergency channel. Over and over. Then, the floor creaked upstairs. He told the kids to hide in the locker under the desk. He climbed the stairs, rifle shaking in his hands. At the top of the lighthouse stood something almost human. It wore the coat of the mayor, the boots of the ranger, the voice of his wife. "It wasn't the bear, Johann," it said, tilting its head. "She ran from me." He raised the rifle. The thing smiled. "You belong here too." The shot rang out across the snow. He didn't look back. He ran, grabbed the kids, fired the flare. Days later, a rescue team found them, half-starved, shivering, alive. They asked what happened. Johann didn't speak, but Bryndis handed them her book. She'd drawn it, page after page. The thing that came from the ice.